India, we're now the fourth largest economy. In the next few years, we're going to be the third largest economy. We're already very close to inching towards the 5 trillion mark, and in the years to come, it could be possibly anywhere between 20 to 30 trillion, as a GDP. When you talk this kind of growth and this kind of bullishness on the economy standpoint, it can only sustain when you have the entire populace and the multitudes of the many Indias that make India as a whole get uplifted in multiple aspects. And CSR therefore plays a very integral, crucial role.
Welcome to the section of Sustainability Karma. I'm your host Rajiv Tikoo. Today we have a very special guest with us, Sheena Kapoor. She heads marketing, corporate communication, and also CSR at ICICI Lombard. So welcome, Sheena, to this episode of Sustainability Karma.
Thank you, Rajiv. Pleasure to be here.
Would you like to briefly recap your journey at ICICI?
At ICS Lombard, it's been a little over 3 years now that I've been employed with ICS Lombard. I've been a marketer pretty much all through, and wearing the marketing hat and being a full service marketing head across the entire on-suite. I think one additional feather to my cap here at Lombard has been adding the CSR to the portfolio, which is again very close to my heart as well. And one feels one is able to do whatever, you play a small but vital role in giving back to society. So it's overall, I think it's been a great journey so far, so good. We are India's largest private general insurance player in the country. So with health, motor, travel, corporate insurance solutions, the entire suite and bouquet of insurance services. When you are a market leader, it puts a lot of responsibility on your shoulders as a brand custodian to be able to walk the talk, to be able to deliver the trust and the promise, which actually in our business is inherently implicit. And insurance is nothing but an inherent promise to pay the customers in their time of need. So it's been about the entire brand building, making it endearing as well as differentiated, unique, at the same time being authentic and empathetic. So I think that has been the cornerstone. Also, as a market leader, one gets a huge canvas to play at a pan-India level across the entire ecosystem, from corporate clients, retail audience, to the entire ecosystem of channel partners and intermediaries that we have. So we've got something for everybody practically. Given the regulator's vision as well, IRDA's vision of insurance for all by 2047, we take our role and our commitment to that very seriously in driving the penetration and awareness. Also very happy to share that we've taken recently the metro rides for the iconic Siddhivinayak temple. So it's now branded and called as ICS Lombard Siddhivinayak Metro Station.
You also said that CSR is very close to your heart and you have been a keen player in this space. So what are the key trends which are shaping the CSR and landscape today?
So, like I mentioned, yes, it's very close to my heart. I think even in my previous company, one worked closely with the foundation there and one got a lot of exposure. But I think when you talk about CSR, there has been a growth in the industry. One is from a compliance angle, 2% of your net profits over the previous 3 preceding years. Every corporate is coming forth from a regulatory compliance perspective has to indulge and engage in CSR. But I think more and more corporates are taking this stance a lot more seriously. And, there has been a growth organically, about 12 to 15% in the overall corpus. You're talking about close to 1.6 lakh crores that's going into CSR programs. A large part of that is in the 4 areas of education, livelihood, healthcare, and rural. And the other trend, so about 75% actually is centered and concentrated in these four programs. The balance is across everything else under the sun, right from whether it is working in specific areas of senior citizen care, domestic abuse victims, child abuse victims, whether it is about vocational training or afforestation, so on and so forth. And I think the other big trend is that a lot more corporates, especially with the ESG agenda and mandate coming into the boardrooms, so that is becoming a mainstay agenda item. And a lot of the CSR programs are now looking at corporates becoming responsible citizens and taking steps towards building a sustainable, greener future and world and planet for the generation to come, and are taking the sustainability aspect a lot more seriously and taking from small measures to large measures. But I see that, especially with a lot of global warming, climatic changes, a lot of the catastrophe which are now happening and occurring because of natural calamities and climate related catastrophes. One is taking heed a lot more, with a lot of players and countries and organizations on the sustainability aspect. So, and I think that is going to become more and more prevalent even in the years and decades to come.
What are the biggest challenges in implementing impactful CSR initiatives?
What happens is when corporates, I think it's not, it's always with the right intention. Rather, they mean well. What happens is there is a gap in the implementation. So either one is spread too thin, or it is so fragmented as a program, or in terms of the designated areas that the corporates disperse their CSR budgets into. It is so fragmented, and it does not build scale and long-term impact, and it doesn't really shift the needle on bringing alive that change from impacting lives, where you can see a tangible difference. And that can only happen when you are invested into it for a long term perspective, and you move the entire machinery around it, and that you choose programs which are synergistic with your competencies, capabilities, your business of operations, your stakeholders, wherever you're able to leverage a lot more given your corporate standing and your business standing, so as to be able to build long term impact and build higher visibility and bring about a real change. What tends to happen more often than not is that it is a compliance tick box, and therefore one is taking on certain CSR programs which are just about meeting the compliance needs, but it is not coming with an entire emphasis on long-term sustainable impact in a particular location, in a particular program, and where you continue to invest year in year. The compounding effect only comes when you're able to invest in a certain program and build scale into it. The other bit is, even from metric, it's more about volume and value rather than, again, looking at metrics where you're building long-term impact and scale. The third is that a lot of the implementation agencies, a lot of times, either from a regulatory or a due diligence standpoint, the NGO partners, and there are a lot of them who are doing incredible, great work, but a lot of them are not able to implement with the strategic direction that was intended originally. The other complication is that from a geographical standpoint, a lot of the corporates and a lot of the CSR investments are centered in urban areas and in and around places of work where the office is situated or where the industry is situated, which tends to be concentrated in the urban and metro sections and thereabouts. It doesn't really penetrate and percolate down to the Bharat and to the tier 3, tier 4 towns and villages where you actually need a lot of the CSR support from an upliftment of, the livelihood and society per se.
Would you have any policy recommendations to overcome such challenges?
Well, from the CSR Act is a lot exhaustive in nature, but I think if one were to, from a policy standpoint, build in impact measures and metrics and bring in a lot more accountability and transparency into that, where the onus and ownership is on corporates to demonstrate long-term sustainable impact. Also, I think depending sectorally from a policy standpoint, while the entire universe is large, if there were policy suggestions and recommendations which nudge certain sectors and corporates in certain industries towards complementing and synergistic areas and bring the entire sector and category together, it would bring a lot more impact. So just to give you an example, say if it were, retail or the apparel or the textile industry, if the CSR programs or the budgets were aligned with bringing alive the artisanals or the tribals, or bring a lot more support from these intermediaries and audiences and communities, you would benefit a lot more from a large scale impact. So it's still synergistic with your business, but you're still able to create sustainable long term impact with scale.
How can companies on their own maximize the impact of their CSR spend?
It starts fundamentally with a few questions that companies need to ask themselves, and be very authentic about it. Starting with, what is the problem that you're trying to solve fundamentally, right? Two, is there an opportunity in that problem for the company to play an active role? Three, is it going to be an investment which is sustainable over long term? Will it be able to create impact over long term? Again, have a long term window and lens to the strategy. And fourth, bring in the right implementing partners and agencies on board, but also activate and amplify and leverage the entire ecosystem of stakeholders, whichever corporate or industry or sector that you kind of work with. So, for instance, at ICICI Lombard, we are in the business of motor insurance. We are in the business of health insurance. Synergistically speaking, healthcare brings a lot of synergies for us from a business standpoint, right? As the leading motor insurer player, road safety initiative is something that we've embarked on and we've been invested into from over decades now. And that's fundamentally, again, synergistic with the business. Now we are in a position to leverage the stakeholder ecosystem. So we're working closely with the highway authorities. We're working closely with a foundation like Save Life Foundation, which is actually creating and repairing structural road flaws in engineering and bringing about zero fatality or zero accident corridors in the country. When you work in the healthcare, and because we work in tandem and very closely with our parent ICICI Foundation, where again, as you know, ICICI Foundation is doing remarkable stuff in a host of areas, and a lot of the initiatives are with an objective of capacity building and long-term sustainable impact. So in healthcare, again, very pleased and proud to share that the foundation has committed 1,200 crores to the Tata Memorial, and it's over the next 4 years. Some of our budgets also get aligned with the foundation towards a lot of these programs.
What kind of a role do you see for CSR in our journey towards a developed India?
India, we're now the fourth largest economy. In the next few years, we're going to be the third largest economy. We're already very close to inching towards the 5 trillion mark, and in the years to come, it could be possibly anywhere between 20 to 30 trillion, as a GDP. When you talk this kind of growth and this kind of bullishness on the economy standpoint, it can only sustain when you have the entire populace and the multitudes of the many Indias that make India as a whole get uplifted in multiple aspects. And CSR therefore plays a very integral, crucial role. I think some of the challenges that I called out earlier in terms of making investments which are with a long-term horizon and with a very sharp lens on long-term sustainable impact, and a very very clear metric of what is the tangible difference that it will make to individuals or communities' lives, right? That I think needs to be a lot more conscious in terms of the corporates that embark on CSR programs, but even from a lot more coalitions, a lot more collaboratives, a lot more multitude of stakeholders joining hands, partnering on synergistic programs, and that is what will shift the needle in terms of long-term sustainable impact for India. Otherwise, from an income disparity, wealth disparity, the divide is really huge, and it will only get wider if it is not corrected.
Sustainability is the other side of CSR now. How are you embedding sustainability in your operations?
Like I mentioned, ESG has become a boardroom agenda and mandate. So even for us, we have an ESG reporting, and as a listed company, even from a compliance perspective, we report on our ESG initiatives, on the E, on the S, and on the G. Even our CSR programs, we're aligned with the UN SDG goals. And in the sustainability space, we are working in a host of areas. When I talk about environment, we've been implementing solar panels installations in a lot of the municipal schools. And we've taken forth this activity in over 6 to 7 cities as of now, and we're covering over 1,000 plus schools. What it does is it zeroizes the electricity cost for the schools, and that brings down the administrative and operational costs. In turn, which brings in a lot of the cost efficiencies for the school, and therefore they're able to pay better to the teachers and are able to have a lot more, from a governance and operating standpoint, a lot more runway because of the zeroized electricity cost. Even from the sustainability and ESG aspect, from a policy standpoint, we cater to over 50 million policyholders across the country. We have consciously chosen not to roll out and dole out physical policy issuance of copies, insurance policies, simply because one can go paperless and green. So today customers and policyholders can receive their policies on a WhatsApp, on their mobile, on an email, and for certain senior citizens who do need the physical copy, it is as and when whoever requests it, we give it out. But that small change itself brings in a lot more efficiencies, and from a sustainable aspect, we have installed a lot more sensor driven electricity panels and lighting options. We are conscious about even the ensuring as well as utilizing the EVs from an ecosystem standpoint, so that you're able to again have a more sustainable, conscious driven initiative. We encourage our employees to come forward and share their respective ideas, whatever it is that they are embarking upon from their own personal as well as from professional standpoint. A lot of paper saving options where we've gone with trying to not print unless and absolutely necessary. Even travel costs, wherever it is possible to have a hybrid working space or work out of a meeting which is or an office space which is close, so that you're again able to efficiently utilize on the fuel. And now we're going a step forward where we're also looking at all our suppliers and the intermediaries and exploring what is, do they follow the standards from an ESG perspective? And we want to then collaborate with those players who meet the ESG's narrative and imperative.
One of your interesting initiatives is Caring Hands. Would you like to give us a sense of what it is about to our audiences?
For a good CSR program, another imperative is how you're able to activate and leverage different ecosystem of communities. Caring Hands is a very special program because it's 100% employee volunteering initiative, where there is a deep sense of pride and gratification associated with employees coming forward and participating in this. It's an annual program that we've been running now for, again, over a decade. But on one singular day, we galvanize over close to 5,000 of our employees across India who travel across, say, 50, 60 cities and cover about 300 to 400 municipal schools. We create teams with captains, co-captains, and team members who scout the municipal school, and centrally we've created an entire template that we roll it out to the entire organization. And centrally we dole out the format and the support. But the team captains are the ones who identify the municipal school and then coordinate with the local team from an optimization perspective, where we do eye checkup camps for kids. You'd be surprised, but 15 to 18% of children below the age of 12, 13 are actually impacted by vision problems. And a lot of times they're overcompensating for it with a lot of other behaviors because it's not getting diagnosed and it's not getting identified early on, and that affects their entire learning and educational journey. And a lot of times even the parents are unaware that the kids are suffering from a vision problem. They just think nadan balak, natkhat balak, and is trying to avoid homework or is wanting to go play. But the chances are that he or she is struggling to read or struggling to from the blackboard or notebooks, and is therefore really close or is overcompensating for it, saying, okay, I don't want to do this because it's taxing a lot. But coming back to Caring Hands, it's a very beautiful initiative because, like I said, 5,000 of our employees go out to cover about 500 schools. We've covered lakhs of beneficiaries where we conduct the eye checkup camps along with the teachers and the principals support, and then basis whoever needs corrective vision and spectacles, we then distribute the spectacles back to them and we close the loop about 2 weeks later. It's very endearing and it's very gratifying. I myself have gone to the schools and everyone across the board, our CEO, our Mancom, to the entire hierarchy across the chain, a lot of employees come forward to participate, and it's great to see and leverage that.
Thanks a lot. It was wonderful talking to you.
Thank you.
Like this program, we look forward to your feedback on our WhatsApp number 9818120554. For participation in this program, write to us at sustainability.karma@gmail.com. Looking forward to meet you again at the same time next week with a new episode and a new guest. Till then, goodbye from all of us. Sustainability Karma, a podcast series on sustainable development, sustainability and ESG.